And I need to put it there.
Good evening, all. Hope you're having a lovely evening, and thank you so much for joining this masterclass. Um, would be grateful if you could mute yourself. Um, and okay, so we'll just wait a minute or two before we kick off, okay?
Do that then.
Right, let's make a start. So once again, thank you all for joining the masterclass this evening. So our goal for this masterclass is to show you how to grow your practice and achieve your desired results by building a high-performance team, utilizing a unique sales and patient journey, and developing the specific communication skills across your team. And before we start, I'd like to just introduce ourselves. My name is Dr. Rahul Doshi, and I'm joined here with my wife and business partner, Dr. Badna Doshi.
Hi, everyone.
So we're going to provide you a lot of clarity on exactly what's needed to make the change you are seeking, to take control of your practice to the next level. We want to provide you with a simple framework that has transformed the lives of many of our coaching clients. What makes us different is that we've implemented, tested, and created success with the systems that we will showcase, not only within our group of practices that we owned, but also across the practices of our coaching clients. And we were also part of the executive management of Dentex Healthcare, which grew from 0 to 180 practices within a 5-year period. So we've been constantly looking at the data from these practices to adjust and modify the process. And in doing so, we've created the exact strategies and techniques to produce the practice growth that you desire. And that's what we will be showing today. So this does come from real life experience. So before we do that, let me just give you further introduction about us. So we have transformed hundreds of dental practices over the last 30 years, and should they have wished, help them to scale and become multi-group practices as well. We were the pioneers of cosmetic dentistry, and as such, we appeared extensively in media. We've lectured nationally and internationally on practice growth, leadership, sales, and marketing. I was the past president of the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. We've both been judges for the Private Dentistry Awards for the last 20 years and thus have insights into the private sector for the last 2 decades and understand all the trends within private dentistry. And as mentioned earlier on, we were one of the founding partners of Dentex Healthcare, and we were on the executive management, and I was their clinical director as well. So we've transformed hundreds of practices. And for us, every client is different. And we ensure that each energy is unique to them and aligns to their personality, their practice type, their area, and their team. So let me share with you a typical case study. So here's a practice where, and this is actually a typical practice that we work with, where we actually help them triple their turnover or revenue, where we help them triple their gross profit. But more importantly, you'll see that we've increased their EBITDA by more than fourfold, and their practice value has increased by sixfold. And therefore, the net value of increase that they've achieved over a 3-year period is over £3 million. And so our objective is to deliver this practice growth by helping grow your profits, your EBITDA, and your practice value. So I'll hand over to Badna.
Thanks, Rahul. So, if you want to level up, and obviously success means different things to different people, but regardless of that, if you want to level up, and that could be you want to increase the average treatment plan value, you want to do more of a certain type of dentistry, you might want to purchase a practice, so you want to gear up for that. You might want to increase the value of your practice. Or you might even want to just simply introduce a change in your business, a new strategy, a sales system, a TCO system, a new piece of technology or innovation, or improve your marketing. Any new system or idea you want to introduce, inevitably, you are going to be hitting certain barriers. To your success. And the reason why that is happening is because you tend to there's a tendency for you to hit a wall because you are doing things slightly different. And if you left those barriers and didn't address them, then over time they would simply compound. There's numerous reasons as to why this actually happens. The first of all, times have changed and they will continue to change. You might have evolved. Technologies have advanced. There's rising competition. Markets have certainly shifted, and therefore patient expectations have evolved. Old systems might have broken, but you're not aware of them and you're still using them, and they're not really allowing your team to work efficiently or effectively. And also, leadership demands are now changing as well. So, the way that we perform leadership and the way we do things as business owners has changed. And dentistry in its entirety has changed as well, especially with now AI, introduction of AI. And the other thing is comfort breeds stagnation. To push through that barrier is quite difficult. And the thing is, what got you to this point in time might not be enough to get you to the next level. And in order for you to level up, what you're trying to do is create a high performance team. And what you're trying to do with your team essentially is to literally multiply yourself so that your team are doing things the way you would do it or even better. If they can do things better than you, then you've got that high performance team. Now, previously, I used to say, to level up, you need to, you have basic skills right now, and to level up, you need elevated skills. But now I say something completely different. You actually need elevated strategies. And in order to make those elevated strategies effective and actually work for you, you need to lead to grow. And therefore, you need elevated leadership systems. And that involves enhanced strategies, productive systems, interconnected focuses of every person on the team, or an autonomous team, a vision with a plan to achieve that vision, clear objectives as to what you are trying to achieve. What are you implementing these strategies for? What is your leadership required for? And you need financial acumen as well to know that you're getting the returns on your investment of your resources. So when you are developing a high performance team, that leadership is about leading the people who sell the service, the people who facilitate the sale, and the people that provide the service as well. So you want to build an effective and efficient team. That way you're not wasting your resources. You want a self-motivated, self-inspired team so that you are not continuously driving the performance of the practice. And you want to create team-driven growth so that when you formulate a strategy to level up, it's your team that is actually achieving that leveling up and growth. And you're not driving the entire business on your shoulders alone. So for that to happen, you need unity amongst your team. You need cohesiveness. You need shared responsibilities. You need a proactive team. You need accountability. And more importantly, you need much better use of your resources so that you can then leverage them. So today I'm going to talk to you about three steps that are going to allow you to break through those barriers of challenges. And all these three steps that I talk about are applicable to any type of private practice. So the first step is leading. How do you lead a high performance team, or how do you lead your team to create a high performance team? And that involves every person on your team. Now, in order to do that, the first approach is you having changed your mindset. So that is the first step you need to take. So here's a question you need to answer. Are you here in your business to serve or be served? You see, so many dentists that I come across feel that they own a business, they pay a wage, they have their employees, and therefore their employees should do the job that they've set out to do. And therefore, the team are there to serve the business owner. That is a very old, antiquated, broken way of looking at leadership. So we have to change. We have to think of what is leadership? What is this new age leadership that we need to create this high performance team? The first thing you need to understand is leadership is a responsibility. You see, before you were a leader, success was all about growing yourself. And you're very good at that because, the more hours you put in, the more hard work you did, the more courses you did, the more skills you collated, the better you became. However, once you start owning a business, now you are in a position of leadership. And now success is all about growing other people, not yourself. Because as I mentioned, you want to multiply yourself. You want your team to do things better than even what you could do. And that is the only way you can scale success because you cannot scale chaos. So here's my definition of transformational leadership. Leadership is the art of helping people reach their best potential as leaders in their own lives whilst nurturing a committed group that will work cohesively towards a shared purpose. Now, the operative terms here in this definition is the art of helping people reach their best potential. You want your team to be able to work at their natural best so that they can cultivate their unique abilities and capabilities and contribute to the overall success of the business. So it's really not about you, it's about them. And one of your main responsibilities as a leader is ensuring that you have this circle of psychological safety. This is a concept that I got from Simon Sinek from his book, Leaders Eat Last. And it stems from our psychological wiring. You see, in the prehistoric era, people lived in communities and they protected each other from physical dangers outside of that community, dangerous animals, weather, etc. But nowadays, we no longer have those physical dangers. But what we do have is psychological and emotional dangers within the practice, within any community. And it is our job to ensure that we prevent that negativity from entering. You need to shield your team from those internal threats, prevent personal agendas that break the teamwork down. Your team needs to feel safe so that they can do their most optimal work. They shouldn't fear humiliation, retribution, vulnerability, or blame. And what really team members are looking for are these things. They want to feel valued. They want to feel appreciated. They want to be supported. They want opportunities. They want to grow. But the thing you have to remember is each person on your team has a different definition of these words. So, one key tip I will give you today is ask your team members what is their definition of being valued? What is their definition of being appreciated, supported, provided with opportunities, or provided with growth? What do they mean when they say these words? You see, if you have this mentality and approach of being there to serve and integrate that with actual leadership systems, then the success you get, the productivity, the increase in revenues, the profits, all that is simply a byproduct of this way of thinking. And what it will do is will help you to leverage the psychology of human behavior. And in this day and age, this is your biggest competitive advantage if you're able to harness the psychology of human behavior within your team. So a lot of people talk about, oh, we want a positive culture. We want to create a positive team culture. And it becomes a bit of a buzzword. But what does that actually mean? What do you do? Like, what is it? Is it just that the practice is being successful and creating profits? What if you're in the midway stage where you're struggling or you can't quite introduce those new ideas or level up? What about then? What kind of culture do you have then? So let's look at this a little bit because it's quite important and it's quite key to everything else. You see, a team culture is basically a set of beliefs, values, attitudes, or behaviors. And collated, these become the DNA, the very fabric of your company and your business. And the thing about this is that it manifests itself in your team habits, in their behaviors, in their actions. So overall, your team could be either proactively productive or reactively destructive. And the thing to know here is that every company, every organization has a team culture, but usually they have a team culture by default. And when it's left to default, it could be a negative team culture, or you could have a mixed team, or just average teams. What you want to do is design that team culture to become positive. So, how do we influence the team culture? How do we change it? How do we, use it to our advantage and what we want to do with it? So, in order to understand that, we have to understand what are we trying to do here? What exactly are we trying to do? We're trying to create an ideal team. That's what we essentially mean when we say positive team culture, an ideal team, but an ideal team for you and your business. And so this is my definition of a high performance team. It's a committed group of leaders working cohesively towards a common set of goals. Now, the one operative word there is leaders. It's literally a micro mindset. Your team are leaders too. They lead their own lives. They make really important financial decisions on a day-to-day basis. They make decisions about the future of the next generation. But for some reason, when they come into your practice, they end up not be performing as leaders. And sometimes that is because a default culture might not be encouraging leadership within each team member there. So the other three operative words in this definition is committed group of leaders working cohesively towards a common set of goals. And this literally translates to this. A committed group means that they have shared values. Working cohesively means that they have systems for consistency. And working towards a common set of goals simply means that they have an aligned vision. So if you want team-driven success, you need a vision to give everybody purpose. You need systems to provide the consistency of the results that you want. And you need a set of aligned values that synchronizes behaviors. And what that does is energizes the team. Once you have this positive energy infiltrating your team, it's a complete game changer. Complete game changer. I discuss more of this in my book, Lead to Grow. So if you're interested, that's there. This is Ali. Ali has a practice in Surrey. When I met him, he was doing implants and he doing full mouth rehabs. He had a lot of skills and generally he had a great team. But nothing that he was doing was actually quite moving that needle. And so we looked at what he wanted to achieve and his objectives and his practice. And what we introduced was a few leadership systems. And we also introduced a sales process because he wanted to do more complex dentistry, full mouth rehabs. And we did a lot of work on verbal skills and teamwork. And eventually we started noticing that the team started gelling and they were becoming very creative, giving them a very competitive edge, and they started leveraging that creativity. And then what they created was something called a mastermind. Now, it's similar to the concept two heads are better than one. But this is his entire team. And this literally became transformational and a game changer for him. And it allowed him to triple his revenue in a way that he'd never expected that he would. And it continues to grow till today. So step one is leading your team so that they become a high performance team. Step two is designing a sales process. Now, what we have to understand before we go on to the sales process is that the market has shifted. Patients have changed, patient expectations have changed. They are more AI researched and they have higher demands, which means if the market has shifted, our sales approach needs to change as well. You see, previously we were service selling. A one size all approach was fine. It was dentist led. But now we have to do solution selling. It's patient led and it's value focused. The AI revolution isn't just technological. It's literally rewired how we as human beings make decisions, think, and communicate. And human psychology is now the most powerful tool we have, and we must leverage that. And as a consequence of this shift, there is now a stark market difference, massive difference between average teams that are just okay teams and high performing teams. High performing teams are now able to sell more higher value treatment plans and more of them. And now it's not just, it's not something that you can decide whether it's an option or not. It's not an option anymore to be average. And as a consequence of this, there is now an opportunity for you. That opportunity is clinical, commercial, and transformational. But it also has high financial value for you personally and your business for converting, transforming your average team into a high performing team. Right now, while there is this shift, and right now, while this change is occurring, because before things settle down, it is not an option anymore to have average teams anymore for a business if you want to survive, level up and succeed and maximize on your business throughout your career so that you get the highest exit value possible. And as a consequence of that, it's not just what you sell anymore. It's how you sell it. So what we introduce is a stepwise sales system. It's not only multi-step, but it's also multi-layered. And there's different components of this, a journey that the patients go through. However, it has to be customized for your practice and your team. One size fits all does not work anymore. If you did one size fits all, you will continuously be hitting a wall. and of challenges and obstacles regularly, and you'll be regularly troubleshooting. So we've created what we call the DWB Signature Patient Experience Pathway. And what this provides is consistency of results. But more importantly, it provides a structure for team implementation so that they can get the results that you want and you can have control over those results as well. As I mentioned, it was a multi-step, multi-layered system. But the most important thing here is that you can adapt it for future needs. So we are going through a transition in our industry because of AI. And, that has really caused that shift. But there will be further shifts occurring in the future as well. So whatever system and pathway you introduce into your practice, it can't be just for now. It needs to be adaptable for the future. So the common communication pathway for patients has been this. Patients phone the practice up. They might spend 5, 10 minutes on the phone. Then they usually get booked in to see the dentist. Now, the dentist in that time has to build rapport, find out what's wrong, look in the mouth, diagnose, discuss options, help the patient choose the right treatment plan and options for them, talk about the treatments, talk about the fees, talk about appointments and what's involved. That's a hell of a lot of things to fit into a short time in that appointment. And sometimes this gets passed on to a treatment coordinator. But many times, and I've seen this time and time again, if the TCO's role has not been integrated into the entire system, well, then it becomes more of an administrative role than sales. And in some cases, they end up unselling cases that you as a dentist might have sold. But regardless of that fact, the patient gets way too much information all in one go. That is not sales. That isn't even ethical. That is what I call communication dumping, and it becomes hugely overwhelming for the patient. So what we've introduced is something called communication stacking. And it's the complete opposite of communication dumping. And what it does, it helps the patient to assimilate and mentally process the information of complex dentistry. And, even if it's a bridge or a crown, it's still complex dentistry. We think of it as normal, but it's quite difficult for sometimes patients to understand how that dentistry applies to them and what's going to be done to them. It's still complex information. And if we want more of our patients to say yes, we need to break it down into bite-sized information so that patients can actually understand this. So what we follow is the DWB inverted triangle technique. And what this does is that it involves that communication stacking. We have had huge success ever since we introduced this, huge success of 98% conversion rate of patients going through this system via the communication stacks. Now, in order to make that work, there are 7 key drivers that makes this signature patient experience pathway, amazing and really, really work. So I'll just go through them. So we need service consistency, a repeatable system so that every patient receives the same standards of care. But that repeatable system needs to be adaptable so that if it's not producing the objectives and the results that you want, you can tweak it in the right places and you know where to tweak it and how to adapt that. You need communication and verbal skills. What I mean by that is pre-thought out, organized verbal skills specific to your practice so that we know who says what, when, how they say it, what patients need to understand at specific stages, what should be repeated, how the sale should move forward, and when. These things are really important. Another driver is psychology and becoming a choice architecture. It is based upon sales psychology. It's designing the journey around how people actually make buying decisions. and what influences that. We also need to introduce a hospitality and sensory experience to create that premium experience. We need to integrate internal marketing into that experience, showcasing our services well, but not in a pushy way. We need brand perception as a driver because every touch point should position the practice as the patient's preferred choice. And what we've introduced now is what we call the DWE TCO system. It's a bespoke, all team driven, structured process that enhances case acceptances with consistency. You see, we've evolved the conventional TCO role, which we used to use in the late 1990s. And we've evolved it into this system. And this literally has been quite revolutionary. And it turns treatment coordination into a repeatable practice-wide system. You do not have dependence on any one person because it's team driven. It's unique to your practice's objectives. It's stepwise and structured so that it's repeatable. And it's a system as opposed to a role. It has specific advanced verbal skills associated with it that we teach. It can be used in follow-up and tracking systems. It helps your team members to be more confident with financial conversations. It differentiates you completely in a competitive market, so it can be literally your USP. It future proofs your practice and makes it more resilient, and you sell more high value treatment plans, so you get high case acceptance of high value. Now, what these things do is provide structure for the team so that they can have high performance. And the overall effect of them being able to implement that structure, implement those systems because they have structure, is that you get loyalty, growth, increased sales, increased turnover, profits. And what we want to do, what these 7 drivers of the signature patient experience pathway does using the inverted triangle technique is that it pre-primes the patient to say yes before the dentist even looks inside the mouth. And there is a huge amount of sales psychology that has already happened before the dentist looks inside the mouth. The final 10-15% should really be about finalizing the specifics. This is Philip. Philip is an implantologist in Devonshire, and he's an amazing clinician. He used to work in several practices as an associate before he set up his own squat practice. Absolutely stunning practice. But when he started practicing in his own practice, although it was beautiful, the reality quickly set in that he was actually losing money and that he needed something more. His clinical skills or being a great clinician wasn't just not enough. So we came onto the scene and we introduced a sales framework that was unique for his practice. And so that every patient was going through a predetermined experience and pathway. We then introduced some leadership systems into his team. He had a good team, but those leadership systems elevated that team from average to high performance. And he became very, very successful. In fact, within the first 5 years, Philip was able to place over 2,700 implants. And he's got a 95% conversion rate. In fact, one of the marketing agencies that he was using was so bewildered and shocked that how is he getting this lead conversion occurring in his practice? And what is he actually doing? And was inquiring about this. So this is the kind of power of implementing these kind of systems. And me and Rahul, we've seen this time and time again over, decades. So step 3 now, you've got leadership of a high performance team and you've introduced those leadership systems. Then you've designed a sales process. Now we have to have sales and communication training. But most people on the team usually say whatever comes to their mind or read scripts. Now, when you're doing either one of those, you're not going to get the results. You see, without structured communication, the conversation is going to become random. Team members often say what comes to their mind first, and they might have the best intentions ever, but the message that they are providing lacks order and impact. And the conversations become unclear, inconsistent, or too administrative, very logical. And sometimes important points just get missed, or they're said at the wrong time. And if there's no structure, the team would default to whatever comes to their mind first. And sometimes they might not be feeling well. Sometimes they might be too busy. Sometimes they're just tired. Sometimes they're not energized. They might have had a negative encounter and an interaction. And all these things impact the way that communication has occurred. And random conversations can damage patient confidence. A patient can unintentionally move away from saying yes. You see, a patient comes to your practice and inquires in your practice because of your marketing. So they are interested and they are primed to say yes because they obviously have a problem that needs solving. But they're just trying to look for the right person who will actually be able to solve it for them. But if that first conversation doesn't feel right, then doubts begin to set in. And the team can sometimes unintentionally unsell the patient who was primed to be sold and primed to say yes in your practice. And it's rarely done on purpose, but usually because the conversation lacks that flow, lacks that impact, lacks that organized structure, patients lose confidence. So you can lose a patient not because they weren't interested, not because your marketing wasn't working, but because the conversion did not build confidence. Sorry, the conversation did not build confidence. It's a little bit like if you go to the movies to watch a movie and you see the movie in the wrong order. So you might see the middle first and then the end, then the beginning, and it's all higgledy-piggledy order. Then what tends to happen is you'll just get confused. What the order and structure of our conversation, of our storyline, is what will create the right emotions and the right impact. So in the communication journey part of the experience and pathway, what you say, how you say it, when you say it, where you say it, and who says it really matters. And the conversations, that communication training needs to be adaptive communication, not scripts. We need to give you the tools to be able to design your own scripts. Talking to the patient and solution selling as opposed to service selling. We've also have a 4C communication framework, the DWB 4C communication framework. And this is organized verbal communication structure. But the thing is, each team member in the sales process will use the 4Cs in a different way to build a communication stack with the patient. And this optimizes the inverted triangle technique. And it's used with their conversations, building relationships in the patient experience, on the telephone, with the TCO system, with new patient consultation, even in your co-discovery examination. It's really impactful there, and your treatment planning and discussion of that. It is very helpful in your case presentation so that the patients have already been primed to say yes, but then you completely seal the deal at this point. And the patients align with what you are saying. It can be used in follow-up systems and to re-engage the patients. So this 4C communication framework is used by specific team members throughout that. But eventually, all team-driven touch points and verbal skills and communication coalesces at the end for patients to say yes to your recommended treatment plan. And this is actually a proven system to work time and time again. So just in summary, the 3 steps are leadership of a high performance team, or leadership to create a high performance team, designing a sales process, and sales and communication training. This is Shripal. Shripal, when we met him, was a dental associate, and he had attended numerous courses and really collated quite a significant number of skills. But he quickly realized that he could sell small treatment plans, like small value treatment plans. But when it comes to larger, more complex things, things that involve implants, full mouth rehabs, more sort of dentistry in the mouth, he was hitting that wall. So we worked on enhancing his communication skills, and we created certain frameworks based on the three steps that I spoke about today that allowed him to work in other practices without hindering his ability to sell. And then we worked on his career navigation and developing a career pathway and developing a vision and growth mindset. Today, Shripal owns a practice, is now in the process of buying another one, and he has more than tripled his income. In fact, in a recent testimonial, which was just this January at the DWB Summit, he now mentioned to me that he now earns 6 times more than what he was earning when he first met us. So he has significantly grown.
So these steps are applicable to really any type of private practice in any area within any team. And really, this is all about maximizing your business, your potential, and your resources. So these steps actually are part of the 7 fundamentals. So we've largely spoken about right now the sales and leadership fundamental, which is part of the 7 fundamentals. Each fundamental is interconnected to each other. And once you have them all in place, that's when the magic really happens. So what we want to do is focus on each fundamental, connect them together, and that allows to deliver your strategic success in your dental practice. And so an example of this is when you have a sales system that we've spoken about in place with a motivated and aligned team, and then you ramp up the marketing. And then you bring in efficient systems and track KPIs. You maximize the conversion of every single lead that comes through from a marketing activity. And that significantly increases your return on your marketing expense and therefore creating practice growth. So let's touch a little bit about marketing. In order to grow, most practice owners reach out to marketing agencies and invest their money to try and find more patients. And often these results are either overpromised by the agency or there is an under-delivery of the right type of patient to the practice. So there is confusion regarding which agency to choose or which marketing activity to choose or invest in. And often I hear that marketing doesn't work. And that marketing budget can sometimes often be the largest expense that the practice has. And therefore, this can easily be wasted. This is why you need to understand the fundamentals of marketing, how it works, so you can then take control of your marketing activity and get your return on investment. So I'd like to share an example of what happened when we took control of marketing of all our practices. We did this by becoming experts in marketing. So here's an example of a practice. So this practice was getting 1,850 visitors online to the website every single day with minimal ad spend. So why is this important? Because a normal practice would normally get 30 to 50 visitors per day in comparison. So we were getting 40-fold more website visitors per day. So if we look at this in more detail, you can see that this was achieving 1,590 through organic leads. That means there was no payment for these leads. And 140 were just direct people who had either saved that website address on their system, their email, or were typing it in to find us. And another proof of how successful this is, that practice joined Dentex, and Dentex was measuring the success of the number of visitors coming from different websites within the group. And you can see right at the top was our practice. And actually, the success that that practice was achieving, the number of website visitors, was a sum of all the other dental practices within the group. So this is something that we do for our clients because we understand it so well. And we can direct you to use the relevant marketing agencies, but really to take control of how to actually do this for your practice. So we help our clients actually understand how the website should be designed, how they should be designed for the correct patient journey and for action to take place, i.e., a conversion to take place. We actually guide them on the SEO strategy, on really the type of content copywriting that should exist and the technical aspects they should be looking out for to their agencies, and really how to work and make Google ads and meta ads really efficient, and how to work social media. When you add that into automation and also on offline marketing, and what we mean by offline marketing, this is marketing on printed media, whether it be billboards, articles, A-boards, letters, cards, etc. This really starts then working to create a large number of patients for the type of dentistry you want to do coming to your practice. So before you invest in marketing, you really need to take the time to understand each marketing type, each marketing sector, exactly how it helps you grow your practice. And that's exactly what we coach our clients on, to achieve clarity and confidence in their marketing. So these seven fundamentals, when put together, help achieve the growth by increasing the case acceptance size for every single patient that comes to your practice. It helps practices scale by the surgery utilization, by increasing the number of surgeries and growing the number of surgeries they have within that practice, or growing and building their group. So, using these seven fundamentals, we've created amazing transformations. And what they have achieved is actually it's achieved speed to reach their desired goal. It's actually increased their marketing return on investment. It's reduced team friction and stress. It's improved recruitment of high quality team members, and therefore created a positive transformation in the energy of the team, and therefore improving the practice owner's work-life balance. But more importantly, it's created a DNA that can be copied and pasted to actually grow the practice and create multiple groups should you wish. And of course, the effect is to increase your profits, EBITDA, and practice value. And this success came through a super close coaching experience where we personally coached each practice owner and their team in a close capacity. And that's from both of us, because both of us have our individual passions, but more importantly, different strengths in what we do and how we deliver growth strategies to those practices. So, what we want to do is help achieve transformational results for practices that actually reap the benefits of the results for many years to come. What we've done is collated a number of case studies from a diverse group of coaching clients, which we've showcased in Bhavna's latest book called Dental Alchemy. So if you'd like to explore growth potential with us, do book a 60-minute strategy session with us. Access our personal calendar by scanning this QR code with your phone, and arrange a call with us.
And also, I think you've put it on the chat.
Yeah, so if you want the link, it's also on the chat. So you can see that on the chat. But if you have any questions, we'd be open to any questions. So you can actually unmute yourself if you want to ask any questions, or you can put the questions on the chat should you wish.
Did you press the unmute?
Yeah.
Asia.
Any questions from anybody? Thank you for joining, Patricia.
Thank you.
Would you advise a mixed practice wanting to boost implants to do free consults? So I'm trying to understand the question. Would you advise a mixed practice wanting to boost implants? So Okay, so let me answer. I don't know if you can unmute maybe, Kishan, so it might be easier to talk on that question.
Hi, yeah, yeah. Hi, Rahul. Hi, Baba.
Hi.
Thanks for your
I
time this evening. I've basically bought a mixed practice. We've got about 6,500 UDAs, but my main area of interest is alongside the general stuff is implants. And, I've actually just kind of invested in a CBCT scanner, and uh, I'm looking to kind of get more patients in specifically who are looking for implants. Yes, there's a few people referring to me. Yes, it's early days, but what kind of implementable advice would you give right now? I know other clinics do these free consults where a patient comes in 20 minutes. It's like a chat about implants. Do you understand the process? And then they kind of try and sell it. But what are your thoughts on these? Because there's lots of practices doing these free consults, right? What are your thoughts on whether that has worked in your experience and what advice you'd give?
Okay, so first of all, you've got a great foundation in that you've got a whole number of patients that you can actually service and that will potentially need this treatment. And so what you do, you actually deliver, you build a practice within a practice, and you build this journey that we've spoken about where the team can actually do these free consultations. When you talk about free consultations, they should not really be in the dentist time. That's an immense amount of time that the dentist will give out. But you need to train the team to have this conversation in a structured way, in a systematic way, using the actual 4C communication system that we spoke about and delivering that in a pathway. So you actually create this for a specific group of people through practice, and the free consults work if delivered by your team.
I've just got one more thing to add to that. By introducing free consultations with the team, what happens? It removes any risk factor that the patient might have in their mind. So sometimes patients think they're going to have to pay for that consultation with the dentist, to have the clinical examination done, and so it sometimes inhibits them from moving forward. But you've already got a patient base, so if, as Rahul mentioned, if you just set up a system where you are providing free consultations, but your team are providing those free consultations in a structured way so that we can uncover what's motivating them, what the obstacles are, and just have that conversation to prime the patient before they see the dentist. Then, when you charge for your clinical examination and what have you, it becomes so, in a way, it's providing a sieve, sifting out those patients that don't really want it and those patients that do. But by providing a free consultation with the team, not with the dentist, because any patient that gets booked in the dentist diary should be paying a fee, but in the team's diary, if you book that in, then yeah, it's definitely a great system to introduce. You should definitely do it.
I hope that answers your question, Kishan.
It does. It does. Thanks very much.
Okay,
Okay.
got another one there.
Patricia's got I'd like to ask how we grow a brand new team. So first and foremost, the first thing you need to understand is actually there are a couple of things that come into my mind. First of all, why do you want a brand new team? Because it might be there are certain hidden gems in your team that may have the potential, but they've not been spoken to or uncovered. The second thing is that you first of all need to create a vision that is compelling for new team members to want to join, to align with, and actually be excited to be part of. Once you have that, that really creates people to work with autonomy. When you actually have that available, people will die to work with you and never leave you. And actually, it creates a way where people will seek to work with you because you build up reputation. So it is about creating a compelling vision, and that takes time for, that's what we help our clients do. But also, it's also before doing that step of finding new people or finding a brand new team, is uncovering the hidden gems and understanding exactly what the strengths are of your current team, and if they can be put into roles that can actually make them thrive in their specific strengths.
I just wanted to add to that because I don't know, the questions that I'd like to ask how we grow a brand new team. So Patricia, are you talking about, you know, a new practice and how you grow a high performance team. So how you hire the right people, how you put the right systems in place, how you put the the leadership introduction into that practice so that you
Yeah.
maintain the hire. So you're talking about a brand new team, you've got a new practice and a new, the process. Okay, fine. Yes. All right. So if you want to do a brand new team, as in you've got a squat practice and you're just developing, then it all comes, as Rahul said, I'm just going to sort of reiterate what Rahul's mentioned. You first of all need to figure out what your vision is. Why does this practice exist? What are you trying to do with this practice? What are your not clinical, business objectives? What are your financial objectives in the business as well? Once you've got all those things, the other things you need to think about is your sales process, your journey, that pathway that I spoke about. What is that pathway going to be? And so therefore, how many team members are you going to need? Because each person needs to be in a position in that pathway so that they can carry out whatever they need to in that role before the patient moves on to the next step. So each one of those steps will require a team member. So how many steps have you got? And therefore how many team members you need, and what are those team members doing in that position is the skills that you want to hire. So you've got to literally work backwards, develop your vision first, a vision that, if somebody was to close their eyes and you're describing that vision to them very clearly, they'll be able to say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. And so then you reverse engineer your vision to work out exactly what positions you need, what sales journey and pathway you're going to have, what team members you're going to need. Because, you don't want to be over hiring team members or under hiring team members either. You want to be be able to sort of create a return on your investment in the team. And you can't do that by over hiring in most cases. In some cases you can, but not in most cases. So work backwards, figure out your vision. I mean, what I would suggest is if you are doing that, then, they're one of my best kind of cases, because I like, you see, when you've already got a practice, we've got to work with what you've got. But when you're actually developing a brand new practice, then you've got a lot of control to implement a lot of these things right from the word go. And therefore you're on a much higher level and leveraging your investment in the business in a much higher way right from beginning. So if you're interested, I think you should definitely book in for a practice growth potential call with us, and then we can talk a little bit more specifically about what your situation is and answer your questions. So yeah.
Yeah, and to add to that, so you might find that in that journey that you will have a team member who will be able to facilitate multiple touch points there. So
Yeah.
it's not a single person for
Yeah.
each touch point. And secondly, you know exactly what skills you need, but more importantly, you want to hire them on commitment and attitude, but you can teach those skills. So that's super important as well.
There's another question here that, you find it difficult being a dentist and a leader. And yes, it can be difficult. We've experienced that as well. There was a time where we were both practicing in our multiple practices and, we were leading at the same time. But what we developed was a leadership system. Once you've got those systems in place, they're literally playing themselves in the background, and therefore the results that I want from leadership is occurring. And so then my managers or my team members, there were some practices where we didn't have any managers. We had a role which we call DRI roles. And we had those people conducting those systems. So you can do it. It's tricky, but once you put the leadership systems in place, then you can focus on the clinical work and your dentistry and generating those comprehensive treatment plans. Because as a dentist, if you are not comprehensively diagnosing and creating comprehensive treatment plans, then your team cannot sell what you don't diagnose. So if you want to maximize on the potential in the practice, then you need that time to diagnose and treatment plan. But if your mind is on so many other things in that moment, you're not really going to be at your optimal best either. And those leadership systems that we spoke about will actually help you with that. So yes, it's possible to do both actually.
So yeah, so DRI means direct responsible individual. And also, more importantly, what I wanted to talk about is that this system, this leadership system, is about exactly what you need to do daily, weekly, and monthly and quarterly. And you just have those time carved out to do that.
Any more questions?
Okay, so it's
Okay,
8 o'clock.
great.
Thank you so much for joining the call today.
Thank
Hopefully you
you.
found it useful and wishing you a lovely evening. And if you do want to connect with us, you've got the link here to join us on a individual practice growth strategy call.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time once again. And do book in for that personal call with us so that we can understand your personal situation and perhaps give you some pointers. So thank you very much and have a good rest of the evening. Thank you. Bye.